Arch Linux is a Linux distribution for computers based on IA32 and x86-64 architectures. It is composed predominantly of free and open-source software, and supports community involvement. The design approach of the development team follows the KISS principle as the general guideline, and focuses on elegance, code correctness, minimalism and simplicity, and expects the user to be willing to make some effort to understand the system's operation. A package manager written specifically for Arch Linux, pacman, is used to install, remove and update software packages. Arch Linux uses a rolling release model, such that a regular system update is all that is needed to obtain the latest Arch software. The installation images released by the Arch team are simply up-to-date snapshots of the main system components. History: inspired by Crux, another minimalist distribution, Jud Vinet started Arch Linux in March 2002. Vinet led the project until October 1, 2007, when he stepped down due to lack of time, transferring control of the project to Aaron Griffin. Design and principles: Arch is largely based around binary packages. Packages are targeted for IA32 and x86-64 microprocessors to assist performance on modern hardware. A portsy build-like system is also provided for automated source compilation, known as the Arch build system. Arch Linux focuses on simplicity of design, meaning that the main focus involves creating an environment that is straightforward and relatively easy for the user to understand directly, rather than providing polished point-and-click style management tools. The package manager, for example, does not have an official graphical front end. This is largely achieved by encouraging the use of succinctly commented, clean configuration files that are arranged for quick access and editing. This has earned it a reputation as a distribution for intermediate and advanced Linux users who aren't afraid of the command line. Relying on complex tools to manage and build your system is going to hurt the end users. If you try to hide the complexity of the system, you'll end up with a more complex system. Layers of abstraction that serve to hide internals are never a good thing. Instead, the internals should be designed in a way such that they need no hiding. Installation: the Arch Linux website supplies ISO images that can be run from CD or USB. A simple command line script is used to install the base system. The installation of additional packages, which are not part of the base system, can be done with either Pacstrap or pacman after booting into the new installation. An alternative to using CD or USB images for installation is to use the static version of the package manager pacman, from within another Linux-based operating system. The user can mount their newly formatted drive partition, and use Pacstrap to install base and additional packages with the mount point of the destination device as the root for its operations. This method is useful when installing Arch Linux onto USB flash drives, or onto a temporarily mounted device which belongs to another system. Regardless of the selected installation type, further actions need to be taken before the new system is ready for use, most notably by installing a bootloader, creating an init ramps, and configuring the new system. Package management pacman to facilitate regular package changes. Pacman was developed by Jud Vinet to provide Arch with its own package manager able to track dependencies. All packages are managed using the Pacman package manager. Pacman handles package installation, upgrades, removal and downgrades, and features automatic dependency resolution. The packages for Arch Linux are obtained from the Arch Linux package tree and are compiled for either IA32 or x86-64 architectures. It uses binary packages in the tar-xz format, with package placed before this to indicate that it is a pacman package. Repositories Currently, the following basic official binary repositories exist: core, which contains all the packages needed to set up a base system; extra, which holds packages not required for the base system, including desktop environments and programs; community, which contains packages built and voted on by the community. Includes packages that have sufficient votes and have been adopted by a trusted user; multilib, a centralized repository for x86-64 users to more readily support 32-bit applications in a 64-bit environment. In addition, There also exist testing repositories that include binary package candidates for other repositories. Currently, the following testing repositories exist: testing, with packages for core and extra; community testing, with packages for community; multilab testing, with packages for multilab. The staging and community staging repositories are used for some rebuilds to avoid broken packages in testing. The unstable repository was dropped in July 2008 and most of the packages moved to other repositories. In addition to the official repositories, there are a number of unofficial user repositories. The most well-known unofficial repository is the Arch User Repository, or AUR, hosted on the Arch Linux site. However, the AUR does not host binary packages, hosting instead a collection of build scripts known as builds. Repository security until pacman version 4.0.0 Arch Linux's package manager lacked support for signed packages. Packages and metadata were not verified for authenticity by pacman during the download install process. Without package authentication checking, tampered with or malicious repository mirrors can compromise the integrity of a system. pacman 4 allowed verification of the package database and packages, but it was disabled by default. In November 2011 package signing became mandatory for new package builds, and as of March 21, 2012 every official package is signed. In June 2012, package signing verification became official and is now enabled by default in the installation process. Arch Build System The Arch Build System is a ports-like source packaging system that compiles source tarballs into binary packages, which are installed via pacman. The Arch Build System provides a directory tree of shell scripts, called builds, that enable any and all official Arch packages to be customized and compiled. Rebuilding the entire system using modified compiler flags is also supported by the Arch Build System. The Arch Build System Makepk tool can be used to create custom pkg-tarxz packages from third-party sources. The resulting packages are also installable and trackable via pacman. Arch User Repository In addition to the repositories, the Arch User Repository provides user-made build scripts for packages not included in the repositories. These build scripts simplify building from source by explicitly listing and checking for dependencies and configuring the install to match the Arch architecture. Arch User Repository helper programs can further streamline the downloading of build scripts and associated building process. However, this comes at the cost of executing builds not validated by a trusted person. As a result, Arch developers have stated that the utilities for automatic finding, downloading and executing of builds will never be included in the official repositories. Users can create packages compatible with pacman using the Arch Build System and custom build scripts. This functionality has helped support the Arch User Repository, which consists of user-contributed packages to supplement the official repositories. The Arch User Repository provides the community with packages that are not included in the repositories. Reasons include license issues, software that cannot be redistributed, but is free to use, can be included in the Arch User Repository since all that is hosted by the Arch Linux website is a shell script that downloads the actual software from elsewhere. Examples include proprietary freeware such as Google Earth and Real Player. Modified official packages. The Arch User Repository also contains many variations on the official packaging as well as beta versions of software that is contained within the repositories as stable releases. Rarity of the software. Some new or rarely used programs have not been added to the official repositories. Builds for any software can be contributed by ordinary users and any build that is not confined to the Arch User Repository for policy reasons can be voted into the community repositories. Derivatives. There are multiple distributions which either build on top of Arch Linux or are based on its repositories, including the following: Antigo is a successor of Synarch that defaults to GNOME 3, although being capable of installing multiple desktops environments. It uses the stock Arch Linux repositories. Apricity OS an Arch derivative using the Arch Linux repositories, the pacman graphical package manager, Pushbullet, BTSYNC, the ICE SSB manager. and a modified GNOME environment, Arch had an Arch derivative using a different kernel, GNU had, Arch Linux ARM an Arch Linux derivative that tries to port the distribution to many ARM computers, originated from the developers at Arch Mobile and Plug Apps. It has succeeded to do so for a decent list of devices using ARMv5, ARMv6 and ARMv7, for example Beagle board, Kubox I, Panda board, Raspberry Pi or the Trim Slice, Arch Bang a variant that uses OpenBox as the desktop environment and emphasizes speed, Chakra an Arch Linux derivative with emphasis on KDE, Frugaware Linux a Slackware derivative that uses pacman as its package manager, Linhas a designed for use on home theater PCs, providing applications for recording TV and acting as a sound and video center, Manjaro a an Arch Linux-based distribution with a graphical installer and custom user interface for package managing. Besides providing many pre-configured popular desktop environments, it also has its own package repository, PacBSD a FreeBSD derivative, which builds on top of the package system of Arch Linux, Parabola GNU Linux Libre a an Arch-based community distribution that is fully conformant with the GNU Free System Distribution Guidelines, excluding proprietary binaries provided by default under Vanilla Arch and using the Linux Libre kernel, a Linux kernel variant stripped of binary blobs. Versions rolling releases similar to Gentoo, and unlike other major distributions such as Ubuntu and Fedora, Arch Linux does not schedule releases for specific dates but uses a rolling release system, with new packages provided daily. Its package management allows users to keep systems up to date easily. Rather than encouraging users to move between discrete releases, Arch Linux releases are simply snapshots of the current set of packages, sometimes with revised installation software. Therefore it usually makes no difference from which release Arch gets installed if updates are installed afterwards, but occasionally manual interventions are required for certain updates, with instructions posted on the news section of the Arch Linux website. Since version 2009.02, the goal is to bring coordinated releases following the pace of Linux kernel releases, in order to provide optimal hardware support. As a result, there is a new release every 3 or 4 months. Monthly updated ISO images are released on every first week of a month. As of December 2015, the latest installation image is December 1, 2015, which was released on December 1, 2015. Other platforms there are some projects porting the Arch Linux ideas and tools to other kernels, ArchBSD and Arch Herd, based on FreeBSD and the GNU Herd kernel respectively. There is also Arch Linux ARM which aims to port Arch Linux to ARM-based devices, including the Raspberry Pi. See also Antigos, Arch Bang, Comparison of Linux distributions, Manjaro Linux, Parabola GNU Linux Libre, List of Arch-based Linux distributions, List of Linux distributions, List of pacman-based Linux distributions. Notes. References. External links. Official website, Arch Linux at DistroWatch, Official Installation Guide, Interview with Jud Vinet about Arch Linux, a 2003 interview by DistroWatch, The Big Arch Linux Interview, a 2005 interview by OS News, Interview, Arch Linux Team, a 2010 interview by OS News, Alan McRae Arch Linux Talk on YouTube, at SINFO 20, Lisbon 2013.